almost the new moon. So it's just a time, especially if you're in the northern hemisphere, of like deep retreat, deep withdrawal. Hello, Britt. And when the moon is waning and the sun is declining, when we're approaching like the last dark moon and the last time within the dark moon that the sun is declining, because after the winter solstice, it will be inclining again. There's like, I mean, let me know if you feel it in the chat. There's like a lot of sticky energy. It's almost like it's like you're moving through molasses and you're not supposed to be doing anything right now. So let me know if you feel that, because I'm feeling that big time today. And so that's also why I wanted to bring through this chat on resonance. And I talk about it a lot in many of my calls, and I slide it in. And it's really so much, Shailene says. It's really this, as they call it, the law of attraction. Like you attract what your thoughts are, what your mind is. You attract the state of being that you are in. And I'm sure you can relate. Like there's days where you wake up and like everything is going wrong. Like everything is spilling, you're stubbing your toe, like everything feels so hard and it only snowballs. And then there's other times in your life when you've got it dialed in and like you wake up and it's incredible and your flow is like, in sync, and you're just, everything's coming in the abundance and just the ease and all of this kind of stuff. And so this is really resonance. And yeah, I'm feeling that especially in my body, and hard to get to do my workout or swim or do yoga. Yeah, there's this deep retreat that the body feels right now. And so what happens when our body wants to retreat and like the world is telling us to continue on, or we have our obligations, we have our work, we have like the things that we need to do every day, there almost creates this dissonance in the body, right? And so it's like when you hear two notes together that don't sound good together, and it's like, oh, like you hear it in your ears and you just, you feel it, you feel that it's dissonant, whereas there's notes that are consonant and you listen to them and it's like a great harmony within these notes. And so you are basically a tuning fork, right? Like we are always tuning forks to our realities. And this is why like there's so many coaches on mindset, and there's so many coaches that are like manifestation coaches. There's all these coaches that are really teaching you how to literally shift your thoughts and your beliefs and your mind, because that which you attract in is what you're putting out. And so we really start with this framework, especially in our practices, that like the world is built from outside of us, or from inside of us to the outside of us. And so it is all just everything that is coming in through us, through our mind, through our beliefs, through the things that we were told, through our conditioning, through the most heavily imprinted parts of our life, which is our younger years. At first, if it's unconscious, like this is what our world is built around. So if we saw our parents struggling, if we saw like all the older people around us, like, their bodies falling apart, like we essentially take on those similar patterns until we wake up and we realize that there's a different way. And then we have to engage a lot of effort to find the new techniques that we're going to have to transform our belief systems around life doesn't actually have to be that hard. Like, where can I actually find the ease in my life? Where am I making life harder for myself so that it continues to be a struggle? And so when we begin to have these like awakenings or these insights, and it's really through perspective, right? Through going out into the world and seeing that people are doing it differently, or, putting yourself in different fields of influence, different spheres of influence, and you're getting so many different perspectives on how to live your life, whether it's, you hop into a yoga class and someone in there inspires you that, is living life the way that you want to live your life, or like living in the body the way that you want to live in your body. And so there's all these moments that like almost slide into our field when we're ready to have the experience of them, because we're resonating slightly with them, where we get to see a different way of being. And then we tend to like slide back into the old way. And when we are in our resonance, when we are in our true resonance, which is really like our soul is like vibrating in its essence and its frequency and what it is meant to be doing on this earth. It's the path of ease. It's the path where like our soul is just like, oh yes, this is what I meant to do. And there's no box to check for that, right? Like there's no one that's going to tell you what that is, because it's so unique to you and what you're creating on this planet. But when the clearer we become, the more our soul moves into its own resonance of attracting in what it already knows to be true on a very deep level. Which practice do you suggest when feeling like this? Like when feeling really sticky, Alana? Like we're like resisting life when we're supposed to be within? Um, Yeah, so there's so many practices. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is where like I personally, especially when I know I do have obligations, like I have a 5-year-old, I have a business, I have like my life, my personal life, like all the things that I have to tend to, which is a lot, right? When I know that I'm supposed to be within and I'm supposed to be taking more time for myself, I really do try to carve out more space where I can. So maybe that's like not having to take on more work, or maybe that's, letting go of certain things that like really don't need to be done right now. Creating like, you have to-do lists and you can create to-do lists in like order of importance, like what actually needs to get done right now and what can wait. And the moment you can put it in your to-do list and on like the what can wait part, then you can clearly see what you need to do and what you can create space for. And then all of my practices that I do in my yoga practice are things that are not going to drain me. And so I just put up that free nidra for the longevity series. So I would do more nidras. Like I couldn't sleep last night, so I did like 3 yoga nidras, like back to back to back until I fell asleep. Otherwise, I know I would be laying there and my mind would be like turning with all the things. And like I rarely have trouble sleeping. I also like to do a lot more supportive postures. And so more postures and practices using props so that my muscles can relax, so that I don't need to be depleting more of my energy. And that's one of the big obediences too of winter, is not depleting your energy. Because yeah, nidras help so much. Because when we don't deplete our energy, we come into spring vibrant. But when we deplete our energy, especially in winter, when everything is telling us to go within, when, the kidneys need that rest in order to be rejuvenated, then we really pull the life force out of our kidneys, and it makes it so much harder to wake up in the mornings in the spring of the day. It makes it harder to come into spring with our visions, with like what we truly desire for ourselves, right? It almost like puts this veil over the mind where it starts to run in these repetitive loops. And so this is where resonance is so important. Like nidras are so great for it because in the yoga nidra practice, and if you don't know what yoga nidra is, it's a laying down practice and you rotate your consciousness through the body, and then you start to feel like the experience of either emotions or experiences within your body, and not like the mind's version of that, but what that feels like in the body. And then you go through imagery. So you just start to rotate your consciousness through different aspects of your feeling body. And it's almost like a deep rest for the body. And so that's why in my longevity series, I know many of you are in there, and the first class was released on Monday, but there's a nidra for every single session, so that after you've done reprogramming the bones of your body through the prop practice, right, you can hop in and do a nidra and allow that to settle. And then within the nidra, you're creating these I am statements. And so we start to look at where in our lives we do not feel abundance, right? Like where do you feel lack? Because that lack that we feel, whether it's not enough money, whether it's not enough love, whether it's not enough time, like you name it, there's probably a lack. Like we all have these stories, right? This is where we get to reprogram them when our mind is in these really porous states of consciousness. And so I went to a sound bath last night and just like laid there in the resonance of the instruments and the sounds. And then at the end, that's where they get us to imprint this phrase for ourselves. I am blank what? I am loved. I have time freedom. I am in abundance. I don't have to worry about my, like whatever it is. You're not supposed to do a negative actually. Like I am abundant. I am loved. I am worthy. And so anything that your body doesn't feel true, we get to reprogram that within the yoga nidra, or when your mind is in these really receptive states of consciousness. And that's key, because when we are operating on a sympathetic state of consciousness, which is when we're in a stress response, we're reacting to life, our heart rate is up, right? We are basically, when we're in that state, we don't have time to like relax into the moment, and we start to run off of programs of what has happened in the past. And then this is the safety mechanism of the body, right? It's like, okay, I have so much going on. Now I can just like run these old programs and keep moving through life. But then what happens is that the same things just happen again and again, because you're in the same resonant field of what those old programs were. And so when our thoughts are vibrations, like if you watch the studies of like water, for instance, like water holds a lot of memory. And so I don't remember the doctor's name. Japanese doctor would have all the pots of plants, right? And he would put his different emotions in each of the plants, whether it was love, whether it was fear, whether it was hate. And the plants grew differently based on the emotions that he was giving to each plant. And so this is what's happening in our bodies because we are water, right? Our whole are like 70% water. And so we're conduits. This is why I always wear copper jewelry, because copper is an amplifier. It's a conduit. So it increases the energetic field, right? And so when we are in a clear resonance with ourselves, when we're doing our practices, like when we're aligning our body, this aligns the mind. The moment we find alignment within the body, because the body is all energy, right? And when these energy circuits can flow freely and the body can feel at rest and at peace within the body, not feeling tension, pain, like, the holding patterns of the body, then we have more energy to be in this more clear resonant state. And so when we're constantly fighting with ourselves, when we're battling with ourselves, that will look like, fighting with others and battling with others, whether it's our own inner world, that will come outside of us and be revealed to us in like hard situations, right? We get to really refine and come back to our own practices and be like, where am I fighting with myself? Because I'm in dissonance right now, right? And so this disharmony in the body creates the dis-ease. And so everything really starts with our own energetic imprint. And so when we're doing our yoga practice, right, what we're doing is we're clearing out our bodies so that everything can just flow freely, so that we have more energy to actually begin to work on these deeper layers of our own being, right? And so, I really invite you to think about, especially as we move into the holiday season and the darkness, and like this tends to be a time where society tells us to buy more and like do more and like be out more, right? When really what we're supposed to be doing is spending time within the home and like digesting and like integrating the previous seasons. Like, where in your life are you feeling like there's friction, dissonance, right? And so really looking at these parts of your life and reflecting how you can go about it differently in spring. Like, why are they coming up for you right now? Can you reflect back to older patterns, maybe older programs of, actually, like, I see this in my upbringing, I see this in the way my mom talked to me, or I see this in the dynamic of my parents, or I see this in like how I felt in school, because we bring through these similar feeling states through every experience. Even though the people around us might look different, there's like a feeling that erupts that is quite similar to something in the past, because we're still resonating on that frequency. And so we'll feel that when, like, if our first reaction when we're getting let's say, like, when we feel like we've been abandoned, right? And so that might look like, this person doesn't love me. And then we like revert to our childlike self, where we're either like go into our room and we don't talk, or we have outbursts, or like whatever that is for us, right? We tend to revert back to these childlike places where we weren't supported in the way that we needed to be supported, right? Whether, the mother didn't support us, father didn't support us, and it never has anything to do with them. It's just like your perception of the situation and what you needed in that moment, and you not having received that in that moment creates this like holding resonance in the body. And so we just keep attracting in similar experiences. It doesn't have to be from the parents, can be from friends, can be from lovers, can be from our children, like whatever it is, where we feel that same feeling that we felt when we were a child. And those are such key indicators of, especially when you can see them, like, I'm actually ready to release this. I don't need to feel this way in this situation. And so we get to learn to hold ourselves and support ourselves in the way that we needed to be supported, whether it's being overwhelmed and moving into pure stress and like you're like a ball of chaos. It's like, okay, I actually need to go in and take care of myself, and I need to cut out all of my appointments, and I need to take time for myself to show myself that I'm worthy to like be supported, right? And so when we're playing with this idea of resonance, we are attracting in these deeper layers of our experience. And when we see them, that's when we're ready to, in a sense, heal them. Because until we don't see them, we have no idea that we're running on programming, because that's how the mind works. That's how it stays safe, right? It creates all these programs because there's like millions of micro moments in your day where like things are coming in. And so the only way the body can adjust to that is to just react to life doing what it knows how to do. But when you start to see these deeper layers come up of like, gosh, I felt like this so many times in my past, this person is bringing this up for me. And so at first it'll be, this person's making me feel this way, but no one's making you feel anything. You're choosing to feel that way, right? And so when you realize that, you start to ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Where am I not being supported right now? Where was I not supported in the past? And what can I do for myself today to support myself? Because every time we do that, we're clearing these deeper layers of dissonance in our body where our soul feels like conflicted or contracted. Anytime we're in contraction, right, we're in fear. And it's the illusion of this world, right, is fear. And so we're always using this as the baseline of where do I feel more love? Where do I feel fear? And that fear is the dissonance that we get to work with within our own body, within our own experience of what do I actually have to clear right now? Alana said, for me, it's not taking enough time for my body work out. Like in the morning, I stretch and then not very motivated to go deeper, to go into the app and do a longer practice or go swimming. It feels like laziness or lack of motivation for work. I'm feeling good. Yeah. And so also noticing like when it does come to self-care or when it does come to your practices, do you put them first or do you put them off? And do you see that in other areas of your life where you put things off? And so it's really common for women, especially mothers, right, to put themselves last because we are literally chemically calibrated after a child is born to like make the child stay alive, right? And to give ourselves to the offspring. And so there's a lot of when we're in motherhood of actually having to reprogram these parts, these primal parts that are like give myself to my child like we literally give our bodies to our children and create them, right? And so there's this more elevated part of our consciousness that also gets to wake up earlier and take care of ourselves or do what we need to do so that when we do, right, greet our children in the morning or our partners or whatever it is, like we've already filled ourselves up. And so with like lack of motivation or laziness, we get to look at this as like, where am I wasting my energy? Like, where does my energy not need to be going today? And this is one of the biggest things that, like, I don't know if you're feeling this. All of my friends are doing this and I am too. And like everyone I talk to, we're all like different people and everyone's doing it. We're all purging. We're like purging our stuff. We're like, I just want to be a minimalist right now. It's like throwing all the stuff out that we don't want. Like, this is what we're supposed to be doing as we're coming into the cave of winter is we start to purge. And it's not just like physical material items. Like energetically, that's a reflection of what is taking away my time right now? What is not serving me right now? What do I need to let go of right now that is not giving me the energy that I actually need to take care of myself, that I actually need to feel okay and safe and good in my body? Because if we let it, right, life will take everything from us easily. Like if we have a job, like, employers, they will take everything from us. Like, and so we really have to refine and redefine our boundaries. And that's like the biggest metaphor of autumn, right? We're creating the container, the metal element, right, to define the boundaries of what we're going to bring in as the water rains down in winter. And so that's why a lot of this practice is to be empty. It's to empty yourself out of everything, because it's only when you're empty that you can be filled up. It's only when you're empty that you get to choose what you fill yourself up with. But if you come to the practice and you come into life and you're just like already filled up with so many things, and there's no time, right? Because it hasn't been cultivated. And so it's like life, you have to cultivate everything. You have to cultivate time. You have to cultivate your work. You have to cultivate your body. You can't just sit there at your garden every spring and be like, I hope something grows so I have something to eat. It just doesn't work that way. Like, you have to cultivate the soil. You have to be really intentional with the seeds that you plant. When things start growing, if things aren't doing well, you have to know to let them go so that you can start putting your energy into the things that are doing really well, that are actually making it easier for you to have an existence. And so this is where we get to get really clear with our own energy in winter, because again, this is the attractive force of our lives. If we're overwhelmed, we attract in more overwhelm because we're agreeing to the experience of being overwhelmed. So the universe gives us more overwhelm. Right? If we're like, okay, I have the time and space to do what I want by creating, not just saying it, by creating the time and space to do what you want, to be like, okay, until 8 o'clock in the morning, nobody talk to me. I have to like take care of myself. You do your own thing, and then I will be able to come to you. You're creating the boundaries so that you can take care of yourself, right? And you're creating the time and space to now cultivate. Yes, putting off my routine is something I am working on reprogramming. I also know where it comes from in my story. Yes, I love the purging. I'm doing this Friday in my home that is too full. Cultivate as an intentional with my energy. Yeah. And it's so good because you can write lists, right? Like, it's so satisfying to physically go through your stuff and be like, why am I holding on to this? I do not need this. You go into like the grandparents' house that has like, they've saved everything. And like, this is from when you were 3 or 4 or whatever. And it's like, you have to know when to let go of things. And like, this is really big, not struggle, I don't want to say, but like one of the deepest programmings of our physical body is that like the moment it's gone, but really everything is living in this moment now. Right? So like my 1-year-old daughter is here now, my 2-year-old daughter is here now, my 3-year-old, like I didn't miss anything, you know? And so yes, you can keep stuff and there's stuff that like is memorable and intentional, but you have to be intentional about it. Don't just keep everything, because then all of a sudden, you know, there's just burdens all around you. And so one of the big metaphors, right, of especially like the Katona yoga practice is like anything that you carry with you is going to add, you're going to have fuel for that. Right. And so are you willing to use your energy to keep bringing that ahead with you? Because we're always making deals, right? And the deals we're making are only with ourselves, because we're always on the receiving end of every single handshake. And so we really have to learn and get really clear on, what do I want in my life right now? And what don't I want in my life right now? And what is causing me dissonance? That's making it feel like friction and uncomfortable and like just like, oh, sticky. Like I don't want to show up for that. I don't want to do that anymore. And can you like find ways to let go of those things? Because the more we agree to it, again, the more we attract in those similar things. And then the more we start to let go, we're creating so much space. And then we have to be really intentional with what we bring in. Because then all of a sudden we have a bunch of stuff again. And we're just like, oh my God, how did this happen again? Right? And so when we start to redefine our energy field, it's not just like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. It's like, how do you want to feel? What do you want to call in? Right? What is it that you actually truly desire? I struggle letting go of things, objects. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because our physical body and the ego is so attached to physicality. It gives it existence and meaning. And the ego is an illusion. And really, like the base level of everything, the world is the illusion, right? Because we're here trying to rectify the separation that is the biggest illusion, that we're separate, right? That we're separate selves, living separated experiences in this world, which we're not. If you sit by anyone, you can feel their energy, right? When you sit by someone that's like having a really bad day, can you not like slice that with a knife? You're just like, oh my God. And when you're with someone that's like light and bright, can you not like you feel that? You're just like, you're like a fly. You're like, oh, I'm coming closer. Tell me more, you know? And so like we tend to discredit our feelings. We tend to discredit our intuition. Right. I've had like my intuition telling me things for 2 years that my mind couldn't understand until I found out. And I was like, oh my God, this everything makes so much sense now. But my intuition was telling me all along, but we just discredit it because we don't see the physical, right? Or the like proof or the evidence, or like, you know, science like needs to see all the evidence, but it's like, I know to be true what's going on with me. Right. And so we really get to, in winter, especially in this really most feminine receptive season, to just receive and trust ourselves, that we actually know what's best for ourselves. And if we know what's best for ourselves and who we're meant to be hanging around with and what we're meant to be doing, and, you know, everything that we're meant to be like geared towards, like we can trust that our soul is telling us that that's the direction you need to head. And like for me, I'm like, I have to do everything in my power to head in that direction, because if I'm not saying yes to that, what my soul truly knows to be true, then I'm again complying with what I know isn't true. And then this is where the web of illusion and the veils of illusion become so thick around us. Well, I can see what you're saying. When I look at all this stuff, I get overwhelmed. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I always recommend cleaning out one corner first a day. Just like, I'm going to choose that corner. And it's a corner of the mind, right? And you're like, how do I feel about letting this go? Right? And like, how do I feel about holding on to this? And so, you know, my girlfriend, and this is kind of like related, but it's not, but she's like really been struggling in her relationship and like not wanting to leave, but finally finding her own place and not knowing if it's right. And I'm like, if your relationship isn't an F yes, then it's a no. You know, and she was like, wow, I really needed to hear that. If that thing in front of you isn't like a hell yes, then it's a no. You know? And so there's like this part of our body that's indecisive and doesn't trust that, like, if I let go of this, I'm not going to be okay. Right? But where is that thing coming from? Because at the deepest layers of ourself, we are totally whole just within. Like we are whole and we are love and we are pure light that has been fragmented from the sun, split into all these millions of pieces to really bring separation back to unity. And so there's nothing of the material world that will ever replace the feeling of wholeness within. Nothing. Right. And yes, there's nothing wrong with buying a house and like having nice things. Like I have an extensive, extensive like sheepskin collection of like rugs that I like to sit on. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But also if someone took it away, I'd still be okay. I'd be like, oh, that was fun to enjoy, you know? And so we just get to look at our own attachments with the material world and where we are, in a sense, like this thing, like why is this thing trying to fill you up? Like, why are you trying to look to this thing to fill you up when you're already full, when you're already filled with love, when you are already whole, when you already have everything you need, when all of your needs are already provided for, right? Like when a baby's in a womb, all of its needs are provided for before it even knows it has needs. And right when we come into the physical world, it's like, oh, now I cry, now I have like emotions and reactions, and I'm not getting what I want, right? Because we're adjusting to this material world of duality. But we're just held just like that by the creator in a womb where all of our needs are being met. And so we have to learn to stay in this resonant field, because the moment we're not and we're living in the illusion of fear or contraction or I don't have enough or scarcity, right? Then all of a sudden we're bringing in more ways to experience that, because our soul is showing us through the same experience again and again and again what we get to clear and work through in this lifetime. I've been thinking and feeling this so much this year. Yeah, and it feels so good and real. Some people do the joy test where they're like, hold the thing and they're like, does this bring me joy? And then if it doesn't, they just let go of it, And when I was doing this and we were going through my daughter's stuff that doesn't fit her anymore, and getting rid of shoes and giving them to people that like need it. That like, oh my God, I remember when I was like 2-year-old mom, my daughter was 2, and people would like give me clothes, and it was like everything, because I don't have time to like look for clothes, or like I have to work, like I don't have time to work right now because I'm like full on in motherhood. And it's like such a great gift. And so looking for ways that you can actually like gift the things that you have brings someone else so much joy. And that's where we're really like, oh, when I actually give, I receive. Right. And so when we're working with this idea of like this law of attraction and this resonance, it's really just sitting in your life, honestly, at every moment, because every moment is your greatest awakener. Like you don't need to go to a cave in India. Like you don't need to go do, I've done so many 10-day retreats and silent meditations and like fasts. Like, yes, you can do all of that and like test these edges of, your comfortability, right? Vision quest, like whatever it is for you. But also wherever you position yourself, there you are, right? Everything around you, you've called in so that you could have the experience that your soul needs to have to awaken to the love and to the abundance that you are. And we're resonating in that frequency of love and abundance and just giving. We receive everything. We receive all that we need at every single moment. And then I'm always playing with that idea too. Like my daughter's like, I want a 2-wheel scooter because all of her friends have those 2-wheel scooters. And I was like, it will come. And I don't do anything, because I know that the moment that that idea is on her heart and she wants that, it will come to us the moment it's ready to come to us with the most grace and the most ease. And then we're driving down by the beach one day and there's just an abandoned 2-wheel scooter missing one little handlebar. So I grabbed it and I went to the hardware store and I got handlebars, and that happens all the time. But the thing is with us is that we don't trust, right? And we can't wait long enough to be like, I deserve that. Like that's what's coming because I desire that. Like I truly desire that. And then we start searching for it, right? And getting like grippy with it. And then we pull in something that might not be right, because it will just say that, oh, that looks like it. Yep, I want that. I asked for that. Like trying to find it so hard, rather than letting it go. And that's been like my biggest lesson is just surrender. Like everything that you desire, surrender it to God and you will receive it. But it's not often on the timeline that our ego minds, that our limited minds think that it's going to be on, And so there is this aspect of our physical that has to actually move through the slowness, right? The physical dimension vibrates so slowly. We have to move through the slowness of the physical dimension to get to where we're headed. And it's also happening now. And this is where if you can change your energy body, right? If you can change the frequency that you're emitting, you're like a radio transmitter, then all of a sudden the thing that we wanted that seemed like it was over there, it collapses and here it is, right? And we're just like blinking, like, how did that happen so quickly? I feel like I didn't have to lift a finger. But it's that deep trust and knowingness that like, oh yeah, I got this. And it's going to come to me because I know that if it's on my heart, I know that if my soul is bringing this through for me, if I'm having just a dream about it, I know that that's especially for me, because it can be no one else's dream but your own. And that's why we all have our own personal visions. And when we calibrate ourselves to those visions and we know what they are, like I desire, some people desire to have like $1 million penthouse suite, $1 billion penthouse suite in New York, right? Some people desire to go live off on a piece of land with their sisters and drum all night. I am of the latter, you know, and I know that that's been a desire in my heart for so long that there's not much I need to do but keep orienting myself to those feelings, keep putting myself in situations that cultivate that, and eventually it will just appear out of in mysterious and miraculous ways. You know, we never know the underworkings of our dreams and desires, but we have to keep orienting ourselves to that vision again and again and again. And so I'm not going to find that vision by hanging out with business people in New York, right? I'm going to find that vision by finding my sisters here. And so when you know what your vision is, you can start resonating and aligning yourself to the similar field of influence of people that want that same thing as you. And then the people that come in that are like, you know, we have those friends that are just like, why am I friends with you still? We have nothing in common. Like, I don't know what this is, you know? These are like moments where like when we're shifting and our resonance is changing, things in our world will start to fall away and new things will come in because we're creating space for the newness to come in. Just checking out these comments. Oh, how do you know when a desire is real and a desire is not a wish? Yeah, well, a wish, I wish for this, I wish for that. A desire in its pureness is like it just comes up. Like when you know how to feel desire, it's not about always acting on desire, but it's like, oh, my soul's desiring this right now, whether it's rest, whether it's being with a sister, whether it's making love, whether it's being with a child, whether it's, you know, our soul like in every moment is desiring something. And when we can rest in that desire and actually feel that desire, again, like if we can't act on it, that's fine, but it's just actually allowing the space for that desire to be felt, right? Then we can really start to play with like those desires are very personal to you. And like if I'm reading this right, like a wish for me would be more like, oh, that person has that thing and I want that thing, or like this person's living that life and I want that life, or like I just wish like I had this right now. Like I think that a lot of our societal programming starts to slide in to our deepest, truest desires. And so sometimes when I'm playing with my own personal desires, like they've been here for a long time and society has no sway on it. They don't change. Like they're quite consistent, those deeper desires, the deeper visions that I have. Like if I see a lot of successful people like living in cookie cutter places, it's like my desire doesn't change. I'm like, I really don't want that, you know? And so if you have very volatile visions, you're like, oh, maybe I'm over here. And then someone comes into your life and they have this thing and you're like, actually, maybe I want that. Right? This is where we're like outsourcing our own visions and wills and desires to something outside of ourselves. And so again, this is where we practice. This is where we start to do our yoga practice, because our yoga practice is helping us communicate with ourselves. And like, what do I actually need today? Right? We get in tune with ourselves. And so, I mean, I know so many successful people that are living a very different life than what I want, and I appreciate their success. And it's like, it doesn't change what I want. And I still want, like, I still am in like, yeah, I'm ambitious, I'm determined, you know, I'm going to get what I want, but it's not that, you know? And so really understanding that the more you sit with yourself, the more you meditate with yourself, the more you're in your yoga practice with yourself, the more you're getting still with yourself, the more that those desires can't help but come up. And it just becomes stronger. And then you'll be reflected in the world, that same thing where people will come and be like, I want this. And you're like, oh my God, I want that too. How are we going to do this together? You know? And so it's really just about getting really clear with you and your own resonance and your own, right, what you're attracting in and the consonance and the dissonance of that. What feels like it is cacophonous on your like ears, like in your body. You're like, oh, I don't like this. And what feels like harmony and like just openness and expansion. And getting clear on situations in your life, experiences in your life, people in your life, work in your life, like whatever it is, where does that fall on that spectrum? And then if it's, again, that dissonance, how can I shift, right? Do I need to get rid of it? Do I need to change my perception of it? Like how can I use this information to my advantage to move into greater resonance? Because right when you're in that field of resonance and you're in that like expression of your soul, that's when timelines collapse because you're so clear, right? You're so clear on your own tuning fork, right? And what you're tuning. And so we do find our note within the symphony, right? And so the piece is the whole, but you are playing your individuated role in this piece. You're singing your own song. And when you find that, it's like it all just starts coming in so easily. And of course, you're going to be tested. And of course, like when you start to open this field of resonance, you like have to go back. You have to go back to where it felt comfortable because the soul desires cause and effect. So it wants that contrast of like, this was life over here again, and I've tasted life over here. And what am I choosing? And you're just going to more and more and more, ideally, align to that which is making you feel expansive and open and giving you what you truly desire. And then the moment you revert back, it's like, oh, I actually don't want to feel that way, or I don't want to be treated that way, or I don't want to be with people like this that are making me feel like this. And so you go back to that sphere of influence or that resonance that you're moving into. And so it's really just like this pendulum, right? Of like, we're vibrating beings. And on hard days, we attract in hard situations. And on good days, we attract in good situations. So the art is really, how do you put yourself in the position, right? How do you position yourself in time and space to have more ease than hardship, to have more grace than struggle, right? And this is the difference between setting yourself up for success or failure. When you take on too much and you don't have enough time, you're setting yourself up for failure. When you set yourself up for success, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to create space in my schedule. I'm going to have like little things here and there because I know something else is going to come up. And when something else comes up, you're not going over the edge, right? You're like, oh, I prepared for this because I know. And it takes time to move through these cycles and to start to see ourselves, right? To know our overwhelm cycles or our stress cycles or anxiety cycles or, you know, the bigger patterns in our life that reveal bigger things for us. And so really knowing that like there's nothing in the experience to be judged. It's just you having the experience. Which experience do you desire to have? And the more and more you get clear with yourself, with your own practices, right? Because this is going to open up this field of potentiality for you. The more clear you get in your own body, right? You start to just move into that field of resonance of that which you already are. But all we're doing is we're removing the layers of distortion that told us to be otherwise, that told us to achieve for this or strive for this or, you know, like be with this person or have this friend circle or like society's version of whatever, or the programming from your childhood, whatever it is, you know, we're just looking to remove all of those blocks that are inhibiting our own frequency and our own resonance. I would love your opinion and insights of 108 salutations as a way of shifting and moving these dissonance in our energy bodies. Yeah, I do not do 108 salutations. My shoulders would hurt. I don't want to hurt. And it's just like, you know, I think a lot of yoga practices will put you on the edge, right? You want to like place yourself on the edge so that you can learn about yourself. And so if you have something on your heart that you want to try it, you know, have the experience of it and see if you enjoy it. Like I've done a lot of our water salutations in the practice, and the water salutations are up. You can purchase them. They're like $17 or whatever for the water and the sun salutations, which are a much safer way to practice the 108 salutations is the sun salutations, because you crisscross your legs so that your pelvis doesn't just like fly open. But you know, like when we do things to extremes, like these are like pretty intense practices, right, that bring us to our edge, whether it's sitting out in nature in a vision quest for 5 days with a gallon of water and praying, you know, and just letting all of the illusions remove of like, oh, safety's a house, safety's food, safety's like not hearing that coyote back there, you know. And so we position ourselves in such a way to meet the edges of ourselves. And we really do learn about ourselves in those moments. And so, yeah, if you do want to try 108 salutations, let me know how it goes. I remember doing those once, and I was like, I would never do those again. But I also wasn't doing them aligned. I was doing chaturangas, which I never would do. I need to jump off, Alana. Nice things for coming in, love. And so, yeah, there are moments that I think is very valuable to create tension in the body, because our body is electric, and it's when our body gets sick when our electric charge diminishes. So electricity is positive and negative, right? And so we have a positive pole and we have a negative pole. On the earth, the negative ions, and the atmosphere is the positive ions. And so when this tension is increased, we actually have a really healthy body, because when the cells are highly polarized, right, the body is able to defend, to protect, right, to be strong. And when our cells lose that electricity, or they lose that magnetic charge, this is when disease slips in. And I've studied a lot with Nuno Nina, who created the like molecular hydrogen bottle, and he's all about electricity, and he measures the electrical potential of food and the electrical potential of the human body in his patients. And so he is all about teaching the body as this electrical vessel. And so that's why when the atmosphere changes, your mood changes, right? That's why when the Earth's magnetic field shifts, like we feel those shifts, because it's literally changing the magnetic charge of our body, because we are also magnetized, right, to the earth through our own positive and negative poles. So it's keeping us here. And so again, this is just another layer of the resonance. And so we do want that tension in our body. That's why, when we practice, it is to take us to our edges sometimes, right? It's not to just to do the same practice again and again. It's changing the practice up. It's doing something different. It's creating the conditions in your body to experience this little bit of tension. And that's why you don't want to be too flexible, because then you're just too open and you get damaged. You don't want to be too tight, because then it's rigid and it breaks. You want to have that tensile strength, like a tennis racket that's like well strung, that a ball can bounce off of, right? It's that tensile strength within the body that gives you the resilience that you need. And like the waters of the body that allows you to be the conduit that you need to be for the energies that are moving through the planet. And so people always ask me, like, I'm getting so sensitive when I do yoga to like the moon. Well, it's like, yeah, you're tuning yourself into more resonance, like more, because you're clearing your body out. So of course you're going to be more sensitive, because those things were always there, but we managed to like block everything out to cope with reality, right? We're like, well, I can't pay attention to the moon because then when it's full, I wouldn't go out, but I have to survive, And so we really start to become more sensitive in this practice to the energies that are all around us. And that's why when the energy is crazier, you go into a room and you're like, I just can't be here right now, You gotta like honor that and respect that, because you are just becoming more tuned into what you desire, and it'll become easier. There'll be less indecision. It'll be like, I'm supposed to be here right now. It's like an obvious no-brainer, and something else comes in and it's like, I don't really feel that. So that's a no, And it's not like a maybe, let's just like play in this field and see if it's good. It's like, that's your time wasted. Like, find those yeses that are just like no-brainers, right? And that's you in your resonance, in your energy field, being like, oh yeah, I'm meant to be here. It feels so good. And then you'll know right away when you're not meant to be places. And this is where it becomes really hard to be in society in the normal way, because you're like, time isn't really that easy to like accommodate in the linear world. Like, to show up on time is like, you have to like rearrange the whole flow of your life to like be somewhere at a specific time. And you also have to, right? So there's like this give and take of like being more fluid and flowy with like your life. And then also, I've got obligations. Like I said, I'd be there at this time for this person or for this call or whatever it is, so you reorganize. And the moment, we're like, when you're forced to be somewhere on time, like today, my daughter was like having a meltdown because she went to bed really late. And I was like, I can't be late. It's like, that's insanity for me to not be able to sit with her. You know what I mean? And so it's like, we are really trying to balance, especially when we get deeper into our practices, the like flow of life, where it's like, the moment you go against that flow, it's like nails on the chalkboard, or like pieces of metal scraping together. And like also have to live in a society with people that agree to time. So now I'm probably going off on tangents about many different things. So yeah, I really am offering you the space to create space in your life right now, especially as like this moon is descending for the last little bit, as the sun is descending for this last little bit. We're approaching the winter solstice, where it's really like the new year, essentially. And not the new year, like, let's get going and let's get moving. It's like, it's really the time to be so empty, so that when the sun does really start accelerating mid-February, you're like running with it. You know exactly what you're doing. You're taking advantage of that acceleration. You're planting seeds, you're having your visions, you know exactly where you're headed, you know exactly what you're doing, because you created the space in winter to move into your own resonance of your soul, right? And like who you are and what you want and what you desire, not society, like what you desire for you. So everyone, it was so nice to have you all here. I'm looking at the dates. I think I will be in Phoenix next week, so I will not be here for this call. But I will post up this replay right away. And thank you for joining me on here today. And I hope that you'll take the time to really create more time in your life for all of the obediences of winter. And if you do want to hop into the longevity series, if you haven't yet, the pre-sale is ending on December 2nd. The first call is up, so make sure you hop in there, because these are my winter practices: using props, doing the nidras, really giving myself space, creating a container of my body, so that in springtime, there's energy, there's gusto, there's like, oh, I've created the conditions for my body to thrive. So yeah, make sure you hop into that. And if you're not in my virtual yoga studio, that is always open for you. We do weekly classes in there, and you get all of the replays. And a lot of you have been joining lately, and it makes me so happy. So yeah, thank you so much. And again, if you have any like call ideas that you want to do, always just reach out to me. You can DM me, you can put it in this like container space within the app. Yeah, I am here for whatever your soul desires. So I'll see you on the next live, and I'll see you inside of my app, everyone. Have a beautiful day.